Is legacy a building? Is legacy transforming a downtown? Is legacy the cover of Money magazine? If you'd ask Jim Franklin, he'll tell you legacy is what's sitting right next to you right now. Let's welcome Jim and Nate Franklin.
And when they began to break bread with Jesus, that's when their eyes were opened.
There isn't anything in this world that is more dangerous than a man that has lost his focus.
Hold on to the truth. Hold on to your faith. Our faith overcomes our fear.
So here we are. We're at this again, where I get to ask you some questions.
Oh, yes, and you love that.
And I love asking you questions. But the reality is you have done a whole lot in life, and a lot that people would look at and say, wow, you've got some accomplishments. I know that you would look at it and say, I don't know what's there, but many people would look at your life and go, wow, you've accomplished a whole lot. But they would also ask, well, what are you leaving? This concept that people talk about, legacy. We're handing a legacy. We're leaving something for those beyond. And no, I'm not saying you're too old that you've got to have this conversation.
Yeah, I'm still in control. Don't forget that.
But the reality is legacy. I think sometimes it gets misconstrued, or we're meaning a lot of things. How would you define legacy when you think about that?
So when you talk about legacy, if you look at it in its purest form, legacy is really a financial term. It's talking about leaving something to the next generation. Before you can leave something, you've got to have something.
Yeah.
I want to leave you $1 million.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah, but I don't have $1 million to leave you. So it's good intent.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we think about what we're going to leave, and we forget, before I can leave it, before I can pass it on, I've got to have it myself. The best thing I can do for you, as far as what I'm passing on to you or to the next generation, is for me to become the man of God that I need to be.
Come on.
If I'm not being what I need to be, how can I leave something? How can I leave a legacy? Because it's not in words, it really is in the content of my character.
I love that concept of what I leave, and I've got to have it in order to leave it. Then that brings us to another concept. I don't want to just look, I want to leave something. And we use this term like look successful, whether you're on social media or talking within your business partners or within your family. Man, I want to be successful. And I'm not sure success is the metric that we should look towards. And I know you've talked about this before, that we don't want to look towards success. We want to look towards significance when we're talking about legacy.
So when you talk about success in the terms of, and I think men the same way, that does, what do I get? How much do I achieve? How much am I making? What kind of a car do I drive? I'm the success of the world. Where do I live? And all those types of things. But that's really not success from a biblical standpoint. Success from a biblical standpoint would be better termed as significance. In other words, am I significant in somebody else's life? Am I making a difference in somebody else's life? That's the legacy that I want to live. That what I am doing is impacting that next generation, or impacting those that are around me, that I'm actually pouring something into their life. Again, it goes back, I've got to have something first, but then I'm being significant. So when I'm gone, then they can say, yes, I see what they deposited in my life. It made a difference in my life. That's really what we got. And that doesn't start after we're gone. That starts while we're still here.
The cool thing nowadays, again, I guess, is tattoos. People talk about, man, I want to have a mark on my body, and I want to put it out, and it means this and it means that. But that sounds like what you're talking about here. Is you want to leave a mark on somebody's life. The best legacy we can leave is the mark that we leave on them, the burn in them. You know, you talk about being raised with a cattle rancher, and you would have to go and you'd have to put a mark on them to show whose they were. I think that's a lot like what God has done for us, that we want other people to see the mark that he's made on us, but then he asks that in return, that we would leave a mark of his name on the lives of people that we get to serve.
So when we talk about legacy, it works both sides, and this is where you need to come in on this, because it's not just about what I am giving you, but it's also what you are receiving.
Yeah.
It is the brand that you're allowing to be placed upon you, the mark that you're allowing. Because I think there's a lot of times your generation is like, no, I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And they're missing out on so
That's
much
so
of
good.
what God wants to pass on to them.
Which is what Hebrews 12 talks about, right? We're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. I mean, we can't argue the fact that people have done so much before where we're at now to get us to where we're at. We talk about it at church in the office. We are reaping a harvest that other people have sowed for generations, right? We as Christians are reaping a harvest that other people have sowed. You as a man are reaping a harvest that somebody else has sown. But if I don't do what the next part of that verse says, which is I don't pick up my race and I don't run the race that is set out before me, then what the cloud of witnesses is doing is all in vain.
They're going out to get popcorn because there ain't nothing down on the
Because there's
field
nothing
to
they're
watch.
watching, which we've got to remind ourselves. Like the best thing that we can do to leave a legacy is to run our leg of the race. I love athletics. I'm training for a triathlon. Don't know if I'm going to be able to do it or not. But running, there's this race, a 4x in the race. And if you run in any kind of sprinter's race, you'll see 4x relays will have 4 people in it, and then they've got to pass a baton. You know, the reality is each of those races are very important to the whole of the race. But it really falls on one runner at a time. One runner with the baton at a time. And many of you have probably thought there were seasons in your life where you didn't run the race well. You've dropped the baton, and it doesn't really matter what you've done to this point. What matters is that you would pick up the baton and that you would continue running your race. We as Christians, we as men need to run our race. I don't know what yesterday did in your life, but I do know that you and I are responsible for our leg of the race today.
So when you come to the legacy aspect of that, for that baton to be passed, there has to be a period in that race that those two runners are running together.
Yeah.
They're running
So
in
good.
sync. So yes, you've run your leg, and then you've got the next generation that's going to run their leg, but there has to be that period of time. And I think that's where we're dropping the baton.
Yeah.
Because, okay, I did my thing and you're going to do your thing. But if we are recognizing that this is bigger than my thing and your thing, but it has to be his thing, then we've got to run this thing together, and there has to be that pairing up. Now, to do that, I've got to get your stride and you've got to get my stride.
Yeah.
And that's where there has to be that outside coach that is teaching us how to pass that baton. And I think that's where a lot of people miss out on it, is because they want to do their thing. And when it comes to legacy and it comes to passing something on, it is not your thing.
Yeah.
It is God's thing, and God's letting you run that race.
Yeah, no, that's so good that we are a part of a bigger picture, right? So we've got a bunch of men that are following Christ. They don't work in the church like we work. They're in all the world. What would you tell them?
You work in the church?
I do. I work there. What would you tell men that are watching as we close up, as we talked about legacy for a little bit? What would you tell men that are watching that you want to leave them with or encourage them to?
So first of all, before you leave something, you have got to have something.
Yeah.
Your relationship with God. I'm not talking about what people see. I'm talking about the internal relationship, that treasure that you have in this earthen vessel, that you've got to be able to pass that on. It starts with that personal relationship. Second of all, you've got to have that person. This is who I am pouring it into. Here is the person that I am going to see what God has begun in me that he is going to complete. Paul talked about Timothy. I want you to stir up the gift. He had that relationship. So it starts with us, yes, develop what God's given within us, but then find that individual that you are saying, we're going to run this thing, but then you got to turn it loose and say, all right, now here's the baton, finish the race out. I'll meet you at the goal line.
That's good.
Hey guys, if you liked today's video, if something spoke to you or you were connecting, you're like, hey, this is working for me. Hey, do us a favor, click on the link below in the description, because that's gonna take you to our Connect page, because something's happening. Don't do the man thing and be like, I'm good, I watched the video. No, there's more. And if you're feeling that, go ahead and run with that. We actually care about you as a man. And if you click on that link, you go to our Connect page, we're gonna help you connect with men in your area. So it doesn't matter what state you're in, doesn't matter where you live, we're going to help. Iron Men cares about men, and we care about men getting connected. If you also enjoyed this video today, go ahead and like, subscribe, and specifically click on that notification bell. That's gonna let you know, hey, there's something from Iron Man waiting for me, and I'll tell you what that is. It's gonna be amazing content. It's gonna be key leaders. It's gonna be everything you want to hear and be a part of to help you be the man you wanna be.